Good morning, students. Today we'll start our next topic, that is a new chapter in history, which is towns, traders, and craftspersons. Okay. So, as the name suggests, what do you think you'll be learning in this chapter? What is your idea? Towns, traders, and craftspersons. Who are traders? So,
Who take
basically, it is exchange, that is buying and selling of goods, right? The people who are indulging into that. And who are craftspersons? Craftspersons are basically people who are skilled in some craft. And craft, as in not what we know, just the paper craft, it can be about making idols, that is, the idols of stone or idols of metal pertaining to God or some other figures, something like that, which requires some skillful work. So, what we are going to see is we are going to read first from here, but before that, we will just take a quick overview of what we are going to do in the chapter. Okay, so it is common man who makes villages, towns, and cities. How did the common man live? Everyone knows that a place is occupied by people, and that place comes to be known as a village, a town, and a city. What is the difference between a village and a town? Is there any difference?
Yes, ma'am, there is a difference. Towns,
Yes.
so cities have a lot of civilization. They are majority of a area where people have done agriculture is city. A village is a small area with only with very less cultivation and agriculture, and towns are in the middle of villages and cities.
I except that one point I went wrong was that in cities, they don't just indulge in agriculture, but they also do other things. Basically, in cities, agriculture is very, very less, not much. But some other means of livelihood are common. So a village is a small area which is occupied by people, and mostly the work done over there is in small amount, like like some what we did in the previous chapter, subsistence agriculture or something like that. Whereas a town is an area which is bigger than the village. So when area wise, it's a place which is lying in between a village and a city. So it is not as modern as a city and not as small as a village also. And a city is a place which is civilized, where you have lot of scope, not just your life is much different when you compare it to a small village. Okay. The answer to this question depends on what kind of town it was, whether it was administrative, commercial, temple, or pilgrimage. So, when you talk of these towns, in those days, in medieval India, in ancient India, there were different kinds of towns. Even today, if you see, each town has its specification. Okay, some towns are administrative towns. What do you understand by the word administrative? So the government is established from there, or it is ruled from that place. Okay. What is a commercial town? So we have seen this word in agriculture, right? So commercial means having something in large amount where you can sell the excess and earn profit. So commercial were those towns which were marketplaces, where buying and selling of good, trade, etc. happened. So those were commercial. What are port towns? As the name suggests, port. So from the ship comes from different countries or different states, and they anchor there, and they actually take off all the material that they have got from that place and buy new things from here and take it back. So that is a port town. What is a temple town? You have read about it in Cholas, right? The previous chapter. In the previous chapter, you had studied that kings built a lot of temples to show their power and wealth. Correct. So certain places, for example, in South India, each time the king won some battle, they used to build a temples to attribute that to some god, to show that it is because of God's blessings that they have actually been able to defeat somebody and emerge victorious. So they built temples, which also in turn showed their power and wealth. So places, there are certain places where a lot of temples came up, and these towns slowly became some holy towns, and hence it is also called as temple towns. And pilgrimage, again, it's an extension. Basically, certain places gained very importance, that some temples or some deities become very popular, and people all over the world, they want to come and visit those places. So those are pilgrimage places. Like for example, Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh.
Ma'am, is pilgrimage places like tourist places?
It is not a tourist place. Yes, tourists go there to visit, but pilgrimage place has something to do with holy. It is a sort of holy feeling. You go and visit some temple or some deity. So when I'm talking of, you've heard of Banaras, right? It's one of the major important, or
Yes.
Varanasi. So that's a pilgrimage spot. Okay. So we'll read about it in detail as we proceed with the chapter. This was just to give you a gist of what it all means. Okay. So pick any civilization in the world and you will notice that the early settlements were along the river. So if you start, the early civilization started with Harappan and Mohenjo-daro, and you will see that all those early civilizations, whether it is the Egyptian civilization or it is the Chinese civilization, they all started near rivers. So if it was the Harappan civilization, it started near the Indus River. Okay, the Chinese civilization started near the Hango River, or the Egyptian civilization started near the Nile River. Why do you think that these early settlements were along rivers, river banks? Why did man choose to settle themselves
Ma'am,
near the river?
maybe because it was easier for crops to grow and the irrigation system was much better.
Correct. So earlier, when man started, settling, irrigation, artificial irrigation was not a thing. They did not know anything about it, basically. So when they started living a settled life and growing crops, of course, as you said, they needed water for that, and hence the river would provide them with that option. What else? Anything else?
It was easier to breed their animals.
Okay. Okay. What else? Transportation is possible, right? Those days transportation was only through means of boats, so that was possible, right? So uh, in the early stage, when you notice people started living a settled life, they of course chose a place next to river. So that is why this came into picture. Okay, now when people started staying in one place, slowly, those started developing into villages, smaller areas where people started living together, where people from one family or people from one tribe, because earlier they were all tribes, right? When people of one tribe, they started staying in one place as a settled life. That is how your villages and towns came into picture. So now in this PPT, we will see which are those towns. Okay. An administrative center was the one where there would be various traders selling their produce. Kings would head court and ran the town from this center. So, administrative center, as earlier you all only said that it is a place from where the king used to rule, or from where the government administers something, right? So that is the place. It was a place of hustle bustle, like capital city. How it is? It is full of people. It is full of ministers, kings. Okay, so in the South India especially, you will see that the kings, they used to held their courts from this temple itself. So temple towns sometimes emerged as both administrative centers and temple towns. We are going to see that in a short while. Okay, so is it clear? Then next was a temple town would be the one which had big temple at the center of its economy. The temples were run by grants from kings, noblemen, and donations by pilgrims. If I ask you, okay, normally when kings build the temple and people go and visit it, what we do, we give donations in those donation box, right? We put some coins or we put some notes. Like when we give prasad, we also give that money also. So one aspect of economy is this: when the pilgrims who are coming there are giving donations. But can you think, even during Chola time, in the previous chapter that you have done, temples were a hub of economy. Can you say why? Do you remember from that chapter why temples were hub of
Yes,
economic?
because
Yes.
um, over there there would be many traders. There would be people selling stuff like produce,
Correct,
and
correct.
it was
So
basically like a bazaar.
yes. So even today, even in today's modern days, when you go to any temple, you will see that outside the temple there are a lot of shops, right, which are selling those puja materials, or even those shops where you can keep your footwear to be kept safe, or some mementos are available, lockets, rings, etc. are available. Some are selling only flowers, Some are selling only some sweets which you will take it back with you home as prasad that you took from that place. So there are shops which are selling this. And other than that, even in temples, in the temple itself, there are a lot of people who are employed, right? Like to keep the temple clean, there are sweepers, correct? To do the pujas, there are pandit, priests, correct? To decorate the god idol, the metal idol, or to make, sometimes some clothes are stitched for those idols, or the ornaments are made for those idols. So you will see that there are people who actually do lot of work in this area, that is the temple, in the temple and outside the temple, and hence a temple was always a center of economic hub. Do you remember this that you had done in Cholas? Right? So you have to remember this because it's having some importance here also. Temple authorities use this income to run the temple. So whatever donation was done by the people who came to visit, or the pilgrims who came to visit, was used to maintain the temple. Run the temple means what? Maintain the temple, maintain the cleanliness, maintain the, the when time comes for some functions or feasts, or when there are some pujas, you have to have additional priests, you have to have additional people to cook the food or prasad for that. So they used to manage the temple from those amount of money that was given as donations. Okay. Pilgrim centers, on the other hand, would be ones which were historically important for a said religion. So when you talk of Banaras, it is a very important place for Hindus to go and visit. When you talk of Ajmer, it is important for the Islamic people. They always make it a point to go and visit that dargah. Or when you talk of Goa, there are a lot of churches there which are very important for people who follow the Catholic religion and they want to visit those places. So this center, this pilgrimage center will hold a lot of importance for people of a particular religion. Are you understanding this? Some pilgrim centers are important to more than one religions. Like I was giving you Ajmer as an example, which has a dargah. Dargah is for Islamic people. But later, Ajmer in Rajasthan became an important administrative center, or it became the capital city of the Chauhan kings. Can you name one of the famous Chauhan kings? No? Prithviraj Chauhan, do you remember? The most important Chauhan ruler?
Yes.
Yes. So when Ajmer became the capital city of the Chauhans, automatically it also became important for the Hindus because the Chauhans were the Rajput rulers, right? Smaller towns developed around them. Smaller towns developed around them and around the pilgrim centers. In today's times, you can think of the phenomenon as suburbs of a city. Are you aware of suburbs and the main city, the two concepts of today's
Yes.
modern planning? What is a main city and what is a suburb?
So the main city is an urban city.
Mm-hmm.
That means that it's very big and um, it has a lot of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Suburb cities are a bit outside of urban cities, and they are mostly used for agriculture, and there are very less people living.
Correct, because
Or
the suburbs are on the verge of development. Like nowadays, if you see, you refer to as when you refer to as something called as Pune city, you are referring to the prime localities of Pune, which are already occupied, which where a lot of people are already staying, and these people are indulged in the various activities. Okay, but around Pune, now around the main city of Pune, also you have different new localities that have come up. Though we write it Pune only, but they are not in proper city, right? They are on the outskirts of the main city. So these places will be called as suburbs. Like, they are like in Mumbai also. You have Fort as the main city, and all that is developed around it is called as the suburban Mumbai. Okay, so this is how the suburbs are newly developed places. So when actual city gets full of people, when there is nothing left for new people to come and settle, then they start settling in and around them because it is very easy and convenient to travel to these main cities. So that is how suburbs develop. Are you understanding the idea? So one town would have a common
Yes.
marketplace People from neighboring network of towns would bring their produce here to sell and make their purchases from. So, like what we were talking as commercial towns or market towns, each town will have a marketplace. Okay, and people from neighboring places will come there to sell their produce and buy something from that town. Can you see this picture here? How the shop is set up? Of course, this is from medieval India, so it's not like a posh one which will be there now. Okay, it used to be like that. So food grains are for sale, or spices are for sale, some other items are for sale. So people from different towns come here and they used to sell and buy products from here. Okay, so before we go to textbook, can you read this?
Let us do a fun exercise. Suppose you have to arrange a fun fair in your society with stalls where you can sell small items like Diwali lamps, bookmarks made by you and your friends. Make a list of all the arrangements you will make.
Yes. What you will have to make if you have to arrange this kind of funfair in your society where a lot of such kind of things would be sold? What is required
Ma'am,
in
you need
Diwali?
to first get the supplies for what you're going to be selling.
Correct. So here, if you're going to get a supply for Diwali lamps, what can you do? From where can you get it?
First, we would need some funding.
We would need some funds. Okay,
Funds.
money.
Funding.
Okay, okay, good. Then,
Then we go to shop and buy it.
okay. So do you do all the buying from same shop?
No, ma'am. We would
No.
need different
Different
shops.
shops.
Correct. You will visit different shops and then you will find out which are the best ones and those you will purchase. And again, those ones which are at the lesser price also, but different from each other. So your shop should or your funfair stall should have a variety. And what about the bookmarks done by your friends?
Distribute. You
Distribute.
distribute the work.
Some of your friends, see here when you're talking of something made by you, they are like making connection, like craftsperson. Somebody may be good at, your friends may be good at doing all this, right? So maybe you decide a theme that it should be a bird bookmark, or it should be some cartoon character bookmark. So
Ma'am,
everyone will
also,
start making that way, or
ma'am,
you
also
keep a
one,
free theme and people just make what they like.
ma'am, also another arrangement will be how much will you sell the product for?
Okay, fine. So now I will open the textbook. Or you want to go through the worksheet first? That will be better. So answers we can discuss, right?
Yeah, ma'am.
And then we'll go to the textbook. Okay. So who will read?
In medieval ages, there were different types of towns that which combined several functions. These were not only towns but centers for commercial activities as well as craft production. Administrative centers. Imagine what a busy morning would look like in an administrative town.
Administrative. Hmm.
The
Read,
town
read.
boasting with markets selling grain, spices, cloth, and jewelry. Water supply for the towns comes from wells and tanks. The weavers are busy producing cloth.
Sculptors are
Sculptors are
making
are making
exquisite
exquisite bronze and
idols,
idols and tall
ornamental
ornamental bells and metal lamps. There are places with pavilions or ma-
mandapas.
mandapas. Kings hold the court in these mandapas.
Okay. So this example, no, whatever is given here, it is from your textbook. Okay. It is from the town of Cholas. Okay. And what they are saying, and in an administrative town of Cholas, if you see a typical day in morning, any given day in the morning, you will see that this town was always bustling with markets. Bustling means lot of people coming and going. Okay, lot of interaction going on. Between whom? The people who are selling the grain, spices, cloth, and jewelry, and the others who have come there to purchase it. Then you will see some people who are going and taking water from the wells and the tanks. Then there are weavers, that is the craftspersons who used to do their own work, that is produce, weave the cloth. Or there were sculptors who used to make bronze statues. Idols are statues. Okay, and even ornamental bells. You know what are bells? When you go to temple, you ring that bell, right? घंटा वाजवतो ना आपण आत जाताना. Those are
Yes,
ornamental
ma'am.
bells and even the metal lamps. So these sculptors were skilled people in their field. They could make all this with metals. And then you will see that there are pavilions, there are palaces, there are mandapas. Mandapa is what? Have you heard of the word mandap in Marathi? Mandapa is an additional place or like a closed place which is made right next to some courtyard where you actually put up
Yeah.
like a modern day stall which would be like a covered place where you can sit and perform your activities. So the kings at time used to sit in these mandapas near the in the temple towns in the court of these temples, and then they used to hold their courts from there. Are you understanding this? So, what is
Yes,
the
ma'am.
question? What do you understand by the phrase kings hold court? Means what? So, it means what? It is a formal meeting or a formal assembly held by the king in presence of his courtiers, okay, in which he will discuss the affairs of the state. Okay, he will discuss what is like what you said is correct. He will discuss the day to day administrative matters with his courtiers. So, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then how do you think temples contributed to the economy of the town? You will write the answer from here because you have to write only about the economic part of it, right? So you will write it from there. Pilgrims who flocked to the temples made donations and the authorities used their wealth to finance trade and banking. Okay, and then if you want you can add how those temples would have nearby shops where always the activity of trading would go on, that you can mention later.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so can we stop for the day? This last question I want you to think and write on your own. Write today's marketplace, how it is, and what can be the difference or similarity, if any, in olden days markets and today's markets. Okay, bye bye.
If you like our videos, do share them and subscribe to our channel. If you want awesome quizzes, write to us. Keep watching and keep learning with Walnut.